listening to LYNC Radio. I'm Jessica Iturralde. In this special episode of LYNC Radio, we're reflecting on our time in Berlin. Recently, Love Your Neighbor community was on the ground in Berlin, Germany, where we co-convened with our partners, the Secretariat and Templeton Religion Trust, to bring you the Berlin Civil Society program, which, according to the Secretariat's website, brought majority world voices to the global conversation about freedom of religious belief. For part one in this special series, we'll delve into the unveiling of the Secretariat's new academic council and unpack remarks from the Berlin program's opening session. Then we'll finish up with a look at the event's Eurasian panel. But first, Love Your Neighbor community has recently launched a new media initiative to broaden conversations between those that believe differently. We know that as a society, we need to work together. And how can we do that if we don't take the time to share and listen to one another? Therefore, we're asking our listeners to like and subscribe to our programs and share it with someone you know who also wants to expand the conversation. You may learn more at lyncommunity.org. That sound you hear is the lobby of the iconic Adlon Kempinski Hotel, which sits right outside the Brandenburg Gate. Here, leaders and experts from around the globe just gathered to discuss and address some of the most pressing issues related to religious freedom, social cohesion, and resilience. The Berlin Civil Society program kicked off on Tuesday, October 8th, with the very first academic session hosted by the new Secretariat Global Academic Council.
I promise you, it will not be the easiest area of work that we will be engaging in academically and, of course, as we engage with practitioners as well.
The council session, led by Reverend May Cannon and Jocelyn Cesari, co-chairs of the council, presented its background and main goals. Cesari emphasized that one of the goals is to critically examine main terms commonly used and taken for granted in most of the policies and investigations on religious freedom, notably violence, security, and extremism.
The violence is not only physical. Actually, most of the violence is happening in what we would call structural violence.
Cesari stressed that violence is not only physical but also structural, as it is embedded within political and social institutions. This form of violence manifests through systemic inequalities that restrict access to fundamental rights, such as freedom of religion. Some examples she gave include discriminatory citizenship policies against Muslims in Myanmar, and more recently, in India. Cesari also highlighted that historically, secular actors and states often perpetuate as much, if not more, violence than religious entities. She argued that understanding how religious freedom is impacted requires analyzing the interactions between secular and religious institutions in specific contexts, rather than focusing solely on the potential for violence within religious traditions.
I can very much recognize it from my context, where
later, other council members, Dr. Pavel Bargar and Dr. Dennis Hoover, resonated with Cesari's views on structural violence and religious privilege. Bargar expressed agreement with Cesari's view that structural violence extends beyond physical violence, highlighting how historical privileges for certain forms of Christianity in Central Europe have led to challenges for other faith communities, which are often discriminated against through narratives labeling them as cults or sects.
I particularly resonated with remarks about extremism and being careful how we think about what counts as extreme.
Hoover noted the importance of being careful on how we all think about what counts as extreme, and added that there are specific and pro-social forms of religious expression that may deviate from the societal mainstream, but are not necessarily threatening. Hoover critiqued secularization theory, asserting that religion remains politically significant in modern contexts. Hoover also touched on the role of the state in maintaining legitimacy through religious freedom rather than religious nationalism, and advocated for the need to rediscover religion's independent moral authority, warning that blending religion with national identity can lead to more dangerous dynamics.
So it's my honor to speak before you today. This is Kelly.
About midway through the academic session, Dr. Karima Al-Mazroui participated online to discuss her pioneering work in developing the modern education curriculum in the United Arab Emirates. Launched in 2017, the modern education curriculum serves over 600,000 students annually, focusing on instilling values such as tolerance, respect, and civic responsibility within diverse cultural and religious contexts. Al-Mazroui emphasized how the curriculum integrates universal principles with local traditions, significantly enhancing students' attitudes towards diversity. She further highlighted that the modern education curriculum has contributed to a 25% reduction in bullying among students, showcasing its positive social impact. And Elizabeth Prodromo, visiting professor in the International Studies program at Boston College and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasian Center, discussed her work on religious freedom, emphasizing in particular the need for academic research and policy strategies that take into account the ways in which support of religious freedom and protections of and respect for cultural heritage are related. Prodromo also noted the importance of protecting both tangible and intangible religious and cultural heritage, underscoring how site protections facilitated both the multiple dimensions of religious freedom and sustainable economies for vulnerable religious communities. She used examples like the Turkish occupation of northern Cyprus to illustrate how violations of religious freedom and destruction of cultural heritage have led to social homogenization. She advocated for interdisciplinary research and multi-sectoral strategies to foster positive correlations of religious freedom and heritage preservation. The discussions held in the first meeting of the Academic Council collectively called for more nuanced approaches to religious freedom, to extremism, and the preservation of cultural heritage, stressing the importance of governmental, academic, and civil society collaboration in these areas. Reverend May Cannon later emphasized the importance of collaboration between academic research and practitioners in mitigating conflict and promoting religious freedom on the ground.
The privilege of being able to do academic work that integrates with practitioners about religious freedom and how that being protected relates to practitioners on the ground and can make a difference in the mitigation of conflict so that violence can be brought to an end, I think is so critical. And we talked about that a little bit today, but I think that's where the research and working with those who are actually doing the work on the ground is going to have such a significance. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how that will manifest itself in the months and years to come.
Cannon stressed the critical role of integrating theory with real-world practice to foster peace. The first day of the program finished with a hybrid roundtable conducted by the Earth Secretariat, a strong start to the opening day. Love Your Neighbor Community is creating a platform for laborers in the religious freedom building movement to discuss their work, its challenges, wins, and opportunities in order to support the great effort in expanding religious freedom and protecting the marginalized worldwide. None of us can perform this work alone, and LYNC wants to support you through this radio program and our video shows LYNC Talk and LYNC Interview. Will you do us a favor? Help us get the word out so as many as possible can hear and learn of the great work being done for freedom of religious belief. Follow us on social media and be sure to say hi so we can be aware of your updates. Links to our channels will be provided in our show notes.
Our seats are getting ready to begin.
The next day of the Berlin Civil Society program began with keynotes from the program's conveners and VIPs.
It's my pleasure to welcome you to how FORB, which stands for Freedom of Religion or Belief, can help prevent the misuse of religion and build social cohesion and resilience.
Earth Secretariat CEO Greg Mitchell opened the first session and introduced the program's conveners, who each gave their own remarks. Chris Stewart, representing Templeton Religion Trust, Nadine Mayenza from the Earth Secretariat, and Wade Cusack from Love Your Neighbor Community. The opening session continued with keynotes, beginning with Ambassador Robert Rehak, chair of the Article 18 Alliance.
He says, "No, I hear well, but this sounds so good. It sounds so good."
Ambassador Rehak began his speech with a lighthearted joke, drawing on the historical context of the Berlin Wall. He highlighted the recurring challenges faced by religious minorities such as Christians, Jews, and Muslims during the Soviet era and in present times. Rehak noted how the collapse of the Soviet Union brought hope for truth and religious freedom, but warned of the potential of religious manipulation in Russia's aggression against Ukraine. He also mentioned the misuse of religion in the Middle East and emphasized the need for recognizing these negative trends and denouncing the misuse of religion, particularly when it is exploited by political leaders to further their agendas. Rehak also discussed the dual role of AI as a tool for promoting religious freedom and as a potential threat when misused by authoritarian regimes. He called for embedding human rights values into AI systems to protect minorities and support vulnerable individuals. Rehak concluded by thanking the organizers for fostering a space to support and learn from one another. Fernanda San Martin Carazo, director of the International Panel of Parliamentarians for Freedom of Religion or Belief, also known as the IPP Forum, introduced the network of volunteers dedicated to advancing freedom of religion or belief. The IPP Forum comprises over 350 volunteers from 95 different countries and is unique in its commitment to diversity, bringing together voices from various religious, political, and geographical backgrounds.
Throughout history and unfortunately today, we have seen how religion can be manipulated and distorted to justify hatred, exclusion, and violence. The misuse of religion to legitimize persecution, terrorism, or political repression remains a challenge in many parts of the world.
Carazo emphasized that freedom of religion or belief acts as both a shield, protecting against the misuse of religion for political purposes, and as a compass, guiding societies towards social cohesion and resilience. She stressed that freedom of religion or belief was not only an individual liberty, but also a crucial component of pluralistic societies, fostering mutual respect, understanding, and peaceful coexistence.
Hablando un poco de mi país, en Panamá la libertad de religión es total.
Following her remarks, Jose Ramos, Panamanian politician and vice president of the Christian Democratic Organization of America, discussed the significance of religious freedom in his country, where 96% of the population identifies as Christian. Ramos shared how evangelism, despite its risk, plays a crucial role in societal and moral development, contributing to peaceful coexistence. He also reflected on challenges to religious freedom across Central America, where he says political regimes often use religion to justify persecution and violence.
Thank you. Gracias.
Both Fernanda San Martin Carazo and Jose Ramos emphasized that religious freedom was essential for building cohesive, resilient, and just societies, with civil society and parliamentarians playing critical roles in its protection and promotion. Also calling for greater collaboration between civil society and government to safeguard religious freedoms was Ghanaian politician and member of parliament Godfried Seydou Jassau, who emphasized the critical role of parliaments in shaping policies. Ghanaian Professor John Azuma of the Sana Institute further discussed the dual obligations of citizens and believers, stressing the importance of protecting the rights of minorities, women, and children in Africa. Both speakers underscored the need for civil society to go beyond advocacy, ensuring that laws protecting religious freedoms are implemented effectively. Following this session, Professor Azuma had a message for our listeners.
The only way to have security in our countries and to have economic development and growth is to provide people with the freedom of their choices and to guarantee those freedoms, to secure those freedoms, and to protect them. Without people having the freedom to choose, to decide, they cannot be held responsible. They cannot be held accountable for their own actions. And therefore, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion is fundamental to security of the nations and of society.
Wrapping up the keynotes was Professor Uriel Simonson from Haifa University in Israel and Sheikh Al-Mahfoud bin Bayah, the Deputy Secretary General of the Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace and the New Alliance of Virtue. Simonson, speaking to the crowd via Zoom, focused on the deepening divides in Israeli society following the traumatic events of October 7th, which heightened Jewish suspicion and Arab fear, threatening hopes for peace. He recalled the violent clashes in May 2021 between Jews and Arabs in mixed cities like Lod and Haifa, which resulted in widespread destruction and over 1,000 arrests. Simonson highlighted the success of Haifa Multi-Religious Forum, where religious leaders fostered dialogue and understanding through shared meetings and case studies, leading to a public declaration and municipal support. He emphasized the importance of expanding these efforts, enhancing interfaith relationships, and preparing emergency response mechanisms. Looking ahead, the goal is to replicate the Haifa Forum model in other cities with Jewish-Arab tensions, such as Ramla and Akko. Sheikh Al-Mahfoud bin Bayah shared his personal journey of hope that began when he arrived in California in 1999, where he experienced the uncertainty surrounding Y2K. He emphasized that he remained hopeful for a better future, and that hope has been central to his mission ever since. He condemned violence and extremism, particularly those carried out in the name of religion, and urged the international community to advocate for peace, including a limited ceasefire to avoid further bloodshed. He highlighted the importance of fostering tolerance, building bridges between different communities, and protecting minorities, as demonstrated by efforts like the Marrakesh Declaration. The Sheikh also announced the upcoming 10th anniversary of the Marrakesh Declaration and the establishment of the first Observatory for Minority Rights in the Islamic world, aimed at protecting minority rights and monitoring implementation. He concluded by reiterating the importance of waging war on war and emphasized that peace is the path that should be pursued for the benefit of humanity.
Part of spreading peace is to smile for people that they're tired from war and stand up with those they need help as much you can. So, and if you don't, pray for them. And if you can't pray for them, Don't be against them. Thank you very much. Salam.
And framing the conversation at the end of the opening session, Dr. Chris Seipel highlighted his long-standing collaboration with Dr. Dennis Hoover on the intersection of religion, religious freedom, and security. He recounted their early work, including a conference in 2003 that led to a book on religious freedom as a key component of security. Dr. Seipel stressed that true security involves mutual dependence among all citizens and cannot be achieved solely through military force or repression. Seipel argued for the importance of promoting religious freedom, which he asserted contributes to social cohesion and stability.
Protecting and promoting religious freedom, freedom of religion or belief, is not only the right thing to do according to your moral framework, it is in your self-interest to do so. For where people are free to practice the beliefs of their conscience, those people are not only less likely to rebel against the state, they are more likely to practice their faith and contribute to the well-being of all citizens.
Using historical examples, Dr. Seipel illustrated how extremism, whether from the left or right, threatens societal security, and emphasized the importance of relationships, shared values, and freedom of belief to prevent the resurgence of such extremisms. He concluded by urging participants to develop mutual trust and to build inclusive alliances that foster resilience and social cohesion, emphasizing that religious freedom is both a moral imperative and in the self-interest of states.
Thinking of Harvard political scientist Samuel Huntington, who ominously predicted a coming clash of civilizations.
Dr. Dennis Hoover discussed Samuel Huntington's clash of civilizations concept and how this led to a zero-sum approach toward religion and security, where repression of religion was seen as a solution.
So zero-sum thinking was very prevalent about the relationship between religious freedom and security, which went something like this: if religion is the source of your security problem, then repressing religion will help solve your security problem.
Contrary to this, Hoover and Chris Seipel argued for a positive relationship between religious freedom and security, emphasizing that repression exacerbates conflict and radicalization, whereas inclusive religious liberty fosters loyalty, resilience, and societal benefits. He presented two feedback loops: a negative cycle where restrictions on religious freedom led to increased social tension, radicalization, and violence, and a positive cycle where protecting religious freedom creates a supportive environment for mutual understanding, collaboration, and economic prosperity. Hoover concluded by illustrating the economic contributions of the Amish community in Pennsylvania, highlighting how religious freedom can drive both societal harmony and economic growth. That concludes our breakdown of the opening session. Stay tuned for the program's Eurasia panel. Are you passionate about religious freedom, social cohesion, and learning from global experts? Then LYNC Interview is for you. Our in-depth series explores essential topics with leaders working on the front lines of religious freedom and covenantal pluralism. From national security to peace building, we dive into the issues that matter most. Catch the latest episodes on our YouTube channel or visit us at lyncommunity.org and click on the Media tab for more. Don't miss out. Join the global conversation today. The Berlin Civil Society Program's Eurasian panel, moderated by Wade Cusack, brought together key voices from Central Asia, the Caucasus, and Moldova to discuss religious freedom, multi-faith dialogue, and social cohesion. Leaders from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, the Republic of Georgia, and Moldova shared their countries' efforts in promoting tolerance, combating extremism, and fostering collaboration across religious and societal lines. The session closed with reflections on building multi-faith friendships to address global challenges together. The session opened with comments by Azmat Danakmintov, chief expert from the Committee on Religious Affairs in Kazakhstan.
Из числа наиболее важных можно отметить диалог высокого уровня по правам человека и демократическим реформам.
Danakmintov spoke about Kazakhstan's openness to international cooperation, emphasizing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs' involvement in fostering dialogue across various platforms. He noted the ministry's coordination with foreign organizations such as the International News Network and the Paper Lab Research Center in promoting peace and understanding. Danakmintov acknowledged the role of initiatives strengthening interpersonal agreements and expressed optimism for future collaboration. He also mentioned the success of seminars held under a 2001 memorandum, which involved state and religious representatives. Next, Uzbekistan's deputy chair of their Committee on Religious Affairs, Dilshad Mamatkulov, reinforced the country's commitment to tolerance, human rights, and religious freedom, particularly in light of recent political changes, including a new constitution passed in 2023. He detailed Uzbekistan's reintegration efforts for citizens who were involved in Operation Mer, a humanitarian repatriation and reintegration campaign by the government of Uzbekistan to bring back its citizens who were living in conflict zones in the Middle East. According to Mamatkulov, the operation has successfully returned over 500 people to society. He also discussed the work of the Council for the Convention of Conventions, which unites 16 religious groups in Uzbekistan to foster inclusivity and collaboration on policy and social initiatives.
However, we need to understand that Uzbekistan was a part of the Soviet Union, and Uzbekistan is just a 32-year-old country.
Love Your Neighbor Community's CEO Wade Cusack emphasized that Uzbekistan, having gained independence only 32 years ago after the collapse of the Soviet Union, faces significant challenges in raising a new generation of religious leaders.
And during the Soviet times, all religions were eradicated from its territories. And now, the country faces tremendous challenges to raise a new generation of religious leaders who will be educated and will provide solid.
Cusack added that the country is working hard to foster educated leaders rooted in the teachings of the Quran and the Bible, which is essential for guiding its citizens. Shifting attention westward to the Caucasus region, chairman of the State Agency for Religious Issues of the Republic of Georgia spoke about the country's long history as a Christian country, noting its religious diversity. With 84% of the population belonging to the Orthodox Church, as well as other significant Muslim, Armenian, Apostolic, and Catholic communities.
It's up to you to consider if it's good or bad.
Vashat Medzi discussed Georgia's efforts to return religious buildings seized during the Soviet era and highlighted the country's interreligious council, which fosters cooperation among various faiths. He also expressed concerns about individuals who misuse religion for personal gain and the ongoing challenges of the conflict with Russia. Vashat Medzi called for international support, including monitoring of religious freedoms and help in creating a regional center for religious freedom.
We need to admit that physically demolishing Berlin Wall is much easier than to demolish walls between different parts of society.
Representing the Protestant evangelical minority in the Republic of Georgia, Guram Imerlishvili highlighted the collaborative efforts in Georgia, where government representatives, various religious groups, non-governmental organizations, and media have participated in conferences to promote understanding and shared values. Imerlishvili later told LYNC about an experience he had with a traditional Orthodox leader who initially reacted with shock upon learning his faith during a time of dialogue.
For example, recently I met on a table of Georgian feast one Orthodox table leader, and he was saying toasts about Orthodox Georgian people, and he became very friendly to me very soon. And suddenly I said to him, I'm a Protestant, I'm evangelical. And he was shocked because, as I understood, he never saw living Protestant Georgian. And since we have become already friends, he overcame this feeling. And he said, wow, really? It's okay. You can consider me as your friend. This happens when you have a chance to communicate, even with very different approach people, and explain who you are and what is your goal.
And looking to the country of Moldova, reflecting on the country's transition from the Soviet Union to democracy, Member of Parliament and Vice President of the Foreign Affairs and European Integration Committee, Ion Groza, emphasized the importance of freedom for Moldova. Groza expressed gratitude for the efforts that enabled this freedom, noting that Moldova now has the opportunity to allow citizens to choose their leaders and implement laws that protect these rights. Groza highlighted the role of religion in Moldovan society, especially the influence of the Orthodox Church, as well as the importance of ensuring that religious freedom is properly maintained. He also touched on external influences, particularly from Russia, which he suggested could pose challenges. He expressed hope that diplomatic efforts would lead to mutual understanding and agreement on these matters.
I was elected into the Moldovan parliament back for the first time in 1998. And my first committee I served was committee...
And former member of parliament who preceded Groza and president of the European Christian Political Movement of Moldova, Valero Giletsky, reflected on his efforts to improve religious freedom legislation in Moldova and emphasized the importance of building personal relationships with religious leaders to promote tolerance. He shared experiences from his political career, including overcoming challenges posed by the Russian Orthodox Church's opposition. Giletsky also had a message for Greg Mitchell, the Berlin Civil Society's program's chair.
By the way, Greg, if you go back to Washington, I'd like to send a message. One of your former ambassadors in Moldova he started a very good initiative. Every year he would organize a reception for all religious leaders in Moldova. After he left, we have had 2 new ambassadors. They would not organize such thing. I think it's very important. In the spirit what we are doing here, it's important that the State Department tells U.S. ambassadors and countries that it's a good opportunity to organize such receptions for religious leaders, which helps again build bridges.
Later, Giletsky told LYNC,
well, one thing that I would like to say is that these kind of events, they are very important, they are very helpful, they help us build a good network, they help us to share good experiences. I think this is very important, especially in our part of the world. And when I say our part of the world, I mean Eastern Europe, but I saw also people from other former Soviet countries. So coming from a communist regime in the past, I think learning all of this is very helpful and important to build a good future for our countries.
And on a positive note, LYNC's senior researcher, Dr. Maxim Vassin, revealed his plan for positive indexes as a framework to measure religious freedom. Vassin highlighted disadvantages to traditional models of measurement, like difficulties to notice positive developments after one has received criticism, and that purely negative assessments can cement a country's reputation as a violator of religious freedom despite improvements. According to Vasson, the positive indexes will foster healthy competition amongst governments and encourage governments to take the next steps towards improving religious freedom. Vasson added that LYNC will be piloting the positive index plan in Kazakhstan beginning next year.
This is very important to have for women separated space to discuss the cross-cultural religious literacy because we are in a different nature. We are more sensitive, and it's very nice if we can have a discussion among themselves and discuss all sensitive issues that may come up and may be very hard to express when you are in a mixed environment.
Also representing LYNC on the Eurasian panel, LYNC's administrative director, Halina Cusack, shared about her experience heading the Eurasian Women of Faith engagement and noting the importance of special engagements specifically designed for women, led by women. The session concluded with pastors and imams from Central Asia sharing stories about building multi-faith relationships with each other and its impact on society. But shortly before that, the audience heard from two imams from Central Asia, one representing Kazakhstan and another representing Uzbekistan. Imam Bejigit Korshev, who is also the Grand Mufti advisor to Kazakhstan's Muslim Spiritual Board, emphasized the crucial role of maintaining peace and stability in Kazakhstan's multicultural and multinational society. He highlighted the commitment of Kazakhstan's Muslim community to reject violence, xenophobia, and intolerance. He stressed the importance of dialogue and multi-faith cooperation, particularly with Christians and other religious groups, to foster mutual understanding. Korshev discussed the role of imams in promoting patience, tolerance, and condemning extremism during prayers, especially on Fridays when large congregations gather. He also emphasized that while there are theological differences between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, they share common moral values which unite them. Korshev pointed out the need for international collaboration to address global challenges to peace and stability.
And the next speaker, Imam Shafkat Kandam, who is also worked for the Muslim Spiritual Board of Uzbekistan. And Mr. Kandam, the floor is yours.
Imam Shavkat Kamdamov from Uzbekistan echoed the sentiment, emphasizing the importance of learning from one another and the country's efforts to combat extremism and improve multi-faith relations through various Islamic institutions and government-supported initiatives. Later, representing Uzbekistan, Kamendov and Pastor Oleg Vorotsov both talked about their developed friendships with one another. Kamdamov emphasized unity amidst diverse religious communities, using an example where Christians attended an event traditionally for Muslims. He added, saying that today we have so many problems in the world that do not separate us, but unite us. In order to solve these problems, we simply need a friend shoulder to shoulder. He highlighted the importance of solving shared global problems together, fostering relationships of friendship, kindness, and mutual support. Looking again to Kazakhstan, in reflecting on his relationship with Presbyterian pastor Arman Erenbayev, Imam Nazarhan Tashkojayev, another Grand Mufti advisor to Kazakhstan's Muslim Spiritual Board, explained to the audience that the work of the imams, pastors, and members of government is like planting a tree. We planted the tree, he said. We need to water the tree. We need to take care of the tree. If you don't take care of it, it will not grow, but it will die. This quote seemed to resonate with many listeners as several speakers later referred to Tashkojayev's words throughout the day. Later, Pastor Aaron Bayev elaborated to LYNC that the relationship he has with Imam Tashkojayev is very important.
I think that relationship that we have with Imam Nazir Khan are very important. A relationship is very important. Even though we can do lots of trainings, lots of different kind of events. For instance, we are going to have one of the training for imams and pastors in Kazakhstan in about 1 week. And it's completely great stuff, but I think relationship is much, much more important because they are so natural. And you don't need to be someone. You don't need to do anything. You just have to be yourself and to live your life. And that's why I believe that in the whole idea of the multi-faith development, relationship is the most important thing that we can have.
That's it for part 1 of our special edition of LYNC Radio. Next week, we will share part 2, where we'll look at the panel on the Middle East and North Africa, also known as the MENA region, moderated by Susan Grisham from Mercury One. We'll also take a look at the Secretariat's new media and new corporate councils, and we'll hear feedback from some of the speakers' takeaways, including a lightning round of notable messages and advice. You've been listening to a special edition of LYNC Radio, a Love Your Neighbor community update. Just a quick reminder that we depend on listeners like you to like, subscribe, and share this program. If this program has given value to you today, please take this quick and simple action. None of us can do this work alone, but we are strong together. I'm Jessica Iturralde. Thanks for listening.